It's from Minnesota, as you see, and he was on an LCT landing craft tank, so these things carry about 6 tanks. And on D-Day, his LCT-30 lands on Omaha Beach, and as it sat there and the tanks started getting off, come under German artillery fire, and one German shell actually hit the engine room directly. There was one casualty, John. Okay, everybody else managed to get off, but he was the only one. He was posted missing initially. Okay, so you think about 3 or 4 days later, you've got recovery crews who are going through these wrecks, trying to find anything salvageable, and they find remains. Without getting too gruesome, they're not in the best of shape. So there was no way of identifying him, so that person that they found in the engine room was buried as an unknown, because those salvage crews don't know that he's the only man missing from that craft. Okay? So say every person that died has an IDPF, individual deceased personnel file. All the missing have one as well. All the unknowns have an X file. So what you can do, in fact John's nephew, he realised that X98 was the guy that they found on LCT-30. So he's thinking, well, that's probably my uncle, isn't it? And you know, at the time, probably is not enough, but now with DNA technology, you can actually verify it. So he petitioned to have the remains disinterred. And in October 2015, they did. They pulled up the remains here. In March 2016, they verified that it was John, as suspected. And in May 2016, he was buried back in Minnesota. So John's mother, he's long dead. You know, she's been dead many, many years. She never saw any of this, okay? And she had accepted her son's death. It wasn't like she was clinging on to hope he's going to turn up one day and that, but you know, she'd accepted his death. What she couldn't accept that he was missing. You know, she always had this idea one day someone's going to find his body buried in a field or something like that, or by the beach or something, you know? So when she was dying, she insisted that the plot next to hers remain empty at the little local cemetery. And on Memorial Day 2016, that's where he was buried. So she never lived to see it, but you know, she finally got her son back beside her. Kind of sad and nice at the same time. So that was in 2016. Around the same time, a guy called Gerald Jacobson was disinterred and moved back, also from Minnesota. And then last year they had an addition. So when you were here in 2015, there were 9,387 burials. Okay? Within 6 months, there were 9,385, and there's now 9,386. So in that time, there's been this turnover. So the guy around here, a guy called Julius Pieper, and Julius Pieper was from Nebraska. And the way he was discovered, in terms of his remains being identified, is just absolute pure chance. Okay, so you have a school in Nebraska, and the school are given a project. Pick a World War II story. You know, that's just local, that's Nebraska based. And this particular young lady, pick the story of Julius Pieper and another fella. And it's a similar story to Anderson, basically, that you know he was a radio man. He was on, I think, an LST, so landing ship tank. It struck a mine on June the 19th, 1944, just off the coast here. Several men were found, others weren't. In the 60s, the ship was salvaged by the French salvage crews, and when they found remains, of course, they called in the authorities who do the decent thing. And at the time, all the identification for Americas was done in Liège, in the cemetery in the Ardennes, okay, just south of Liège. So all the remains they found on that ship were sent there, and some identified, mostly not. And the ones they couldn't identify were then buried as unknowns in the cemetery near Liège. Okay? So this young lady decides, well, hang on a minute, because he was the only radio man, second-class radio man, yeah, on the ship that was missing, and there was only one set of remains found in the radio room. So again, it's not rocket science to work out it's probably him. So she presented this to her school, who then presented to the authorities, and they said, oh, maybe we'd better do a little check. And sure enough, she was correct. So if there's 100 guys in here from Nebraska, all right? She could have picked any of them. And this is only one cemetery of like 14. She could have picked any Nebraska story. She happened to pick him, and because of that, they worked out where he was. Because of that random choice by the schoolgirl.
So how many unknown remains do they have?
305.
So not all of these.
No. So anyway, I was going to say he was moved back here on June the 19th last year. Okay. They wouldn't normally move him because he was buried in an American cemetery. The reason they moved him is his twin brother Ludwig was here. So the twin brothers served on the same ship, in the same room, basically, both radio men. When the ship was sunk, they were kind of separated by death, if you like. Ludwig was found, Julius was posted missing, and then 74 years to the day after that, they were reunited here in the cemetery. So the unknowns buried in the cemetery, all those men who are buried as unknowns, they're on here somewhere. Okay. So in fact, those men are kind of commemorated twice. They've got an unknown marker plus their name on the memorial. But over 1,200, are just missing. That's it.